So welcome to our fourth part in our four-part series on supporting mental health and well-being for our undocumented Bruins on campus. In this segment, we're going to talk about the impact of the upcoming elections and how that has been on our mental health and well-being, and also just to celebrate our resilience. So my name is Nikita Gupta. I'm a facilitator at the RISE Center at UCLA, and I'm here with amazing UndocuBruins who are joining us today to help share their perspective and some skills and strategies that they've used to navigate this difficult time. So I want to ask you all, and anyone is free to respond, motivations for migrating differ greatly from person to person. What about your family story inspires you through difficult times?
I think for me, my story is a little different. My migration story, neither did my mom or me. It wasn't my choice, and it definitely wasn't my mother's choice. We were actually forced here. Sticky situation. Long story short, my mother ended up becoming a single mom. So that honestly, that's what I find my motivation. If we were brought here, and my mom, she could have gone back honestly to reunite with her family. She could have taken me back, but the fact that she stayed here, realized the opportunities for me. Like as soon as DACA came out, I was like, I think I was 12, about sixth grade maybe. She like rushed to find out what it was, and then once I was eligible, which I believe when I was 15, I didn't even know what was going on. She did everything for me. So honestly, my mother and my grandmother again is my biggest inspiration and what gets me through difficult times. Any situation that I have, my mother's hope and her faith honestly just keeps me going. So that's my experience.
My situation is actually sort of similar. My mom was in a really messy situation with her family, and so she made the choice as a single and as a young mother to come here to the US with me. And I had in another segment mentioned that my mom is my strength. My mom is the person that I want to talk to, the person that, the person that comes to mind whenever I need strength and whenever I need courage. Because although I'll never know how my mom felt, I definitely know that it took her a lot of courage and strength to come here to the US with absolutely no resources, not knowing the language, and making that choice and taking care of me. And I think one of the things that I think of all the time is just making my mom proud and being able to at one point repay my mom for everything that she has done for me.
Yeah, I also, my mom is definitely my strength for me as well. When my mom first came to the United States, it was really just because she had a visa and she wanted this time to explore and get a job and all that. She ended up getting into a really, really abusive relationship where her life was really threatened and she, just was barely able to escape. But when she, escaped from Florida to California, she got into a car accident and found out she was pregnant. So, yeah, that really was difficult for her because it was a pregnancy that, she wasn't expecting, one that she didn't consent to. It was a really dark time for her, but I think she really saw me as like the hope for things getting better and for starting anew. And I can't even imagine what it would be like to be in a different country with all these worries, no job security, and being away from your family. Like she had a really good, she has a really good connection with her family at home in Guatemala, but yeah, she had to really sacrifice a lot for me. And even now things are not like super stable, especially right now with COVID, like the economy is a little bit terrifying, but she is always happy. She's always smiling. When she does get down, it's not because she feels sorry for herself, but because she feels like she needs to do more as a mom. And I think that, it's hard. We want to provide like the best for our kids. But yeah, I think I just really admire her for being like always so selfless and always so strong. Sometimes I'm like, you got to take care of yourself. And it's really hard for, I think, our parents to understand that, because they're so used to, giving and giving. But I think that has also like really taught me how to take that time for myself. And it's hard, you know, because you have such a great example of someone who doesn't do that because they're trying to do the best for their kids. So yeah, like finding the balance, but also always finding hope and finding something to be happy about when it feels like everything else can be like very dark.
Mm. Wow, so incredibly beautiful, you all. What a strong matriarchal line that has influenced and is here with us today. And you all are certainly carrying that forward through your voice, through your actions, and through your beings. You know, thinking, you know, so how do you continue to maintain your optimism and, you know, what has been the impact of election season, given that elections are in, you know, I think, you know, about 2-3 months from now. How have you navigated this time? Tell me about your mental health and well-being, as maybe you've picked up things in the news and so on.
I could speak on this a little bit. In my experience, the way I keep going is I do limit social media because a lot of the politics end up there. Like at the same time, I am an advocate for my community, but with that advocacy comes seeing all the harsh and all the negative news about us. I mentioned in another segment as well that I attach myself or I attract myself. I find things that bring me joy and peace, whether it could be family, community, the 580 Cafe, CCCP, ideas, USP, things that really balance it out, you know, because I can't ignore CNN forever, you know, but just finding that balance, you know, of not just overwhelming myself, finding self-care routine, find whatever works for you. When I was introduced to self-care, a friend told me, she's like, oh yeah, just do bubble baths and mani-pedis, and I'm like, okay, so I did that, but it didn't help. So it's just getting to know your body. My self-care is drinking a lot of tea, getting a book, and going for my runs, but that might not be for everyone. So just finding what works for you and what brings your whole body at ease, you know, holistically.
I want to echo what Jasmine said. I made a personal choice to take a break from my personal social media account. But a part of my job and my other part-time job is to post on social media. So that makes it a little difficult. But my personal account is off right now. But for the same reason, because I think that I was letting, you know, what was being posted consume me. I was letting, you know, like the bad news get to me. And I knew that I needed to just take a break. I also did a lot of unfollowing of, you know, pages that weren't really like feeding what I needed. So I also recommend at some point doing that. It happens. We outgrow, you know, relationships, friendships, or, you know, interests that just no longer serve the purpose. So, and aside from that, I think also just a lot of self-care and a lot of self-love is what's going to get me through the election, whatever, you know, whatever ends up happening. I think reminding myself that I am more than just my status, that I am a person, reminding myself, you know, of the many hats that I wear, of the many things that I am aside from my status, and the many ways that I can continue to exist. And I think that that is what helps me stay sane. Discovering more of myself now that I've graduated and that I'm in, you know, in this process of like what's next. And you know, I think one fear that I do have is, I will say that at UCLA I had many resources, many free resources, like CAPS, the Center for Psychological Services. I had, you know, an amazing health insurance. I had, you know, a great support system that I was able to walk to. So like I was able to go visit my friends. And so now that I've graduated, I am facing that that sort of fear and that sort of like what's next. And you know, so it's a journey, but I think that as someone who graduated and made it through, I can say that it is possible, and I want to encourage you all to keep going and keep pushing through.
Yeah, so election season can be really challenging. I definitely want to echo what Yasmin and Metzli have been saying about unplugging from social media. It is sometimes so hard and devastating to read a lot of stories or see a lot of videos that are just traumatizing and, a lot to handle. I know that we want to stay informed, and we can do that, but we can also realize that it's okay to take breaks, and that doesn't, make us bad people for wanting to take a break. But yeah, it can be a little bit challenging, especially because people feel very emboldened on social media, and it it's like, like a lack of empathy sometimes. Something that I found kind of helpful, because sometimes when I unplug, I find it difficult for my mind to also unplug. I think just doing something about what you're kind of frustrated about. So for me, I worked as an academic college counselor for 3 years, and I helped people who have citizenship, but my supervisor was undocumented, and so we both decided that we wanted to help our undocumented students as well. Even though our program wasn't supposed to cover it because we were federally funded, we still wanted to make sure that they had resources and stuff. So I put together like a database and helped them navigate the college application process. And so something that I'm doing now when I need to just take a break from social media is just like offer up my help for people, reading their essays, helping them with the application. Because I think something that I find like, nice during this time is that we can help others, be elevated to the position that they want to be in, and really increase representation, and also cause some change. And I know this change is going to take a really long time, but just understanding that, you do have power. Just because this election season really tries to take away that power from people, it doesn't mean that we can just, we just have to let it. We can always do something, and it can be hard, but it's possible.
Beautiful. Oh, such a beautiful share from you all. And so I want to ask one final question. Diana, you ended on the idea of power. So, I'd like to ask each one of you, what's one superpower that you have that helps you navigate this time? And if you could also add one phrase or one motivational affirmation that you would offer to our listeners today. So what's your superpower, and what's one motivational phrase you would offer to anyone who's listening to help them navigate this time through the perspective of self-care and well-being?
I think for me, one superpower that I have is my eagerness to help others. I think that also, I don't know if it comes from my sociological background and majoring in sociology, but I think that everyone can contribute something good into society. And so for me, whether it's helping my sister who's in community college now, like helping her transfer, I've also offered, similar to Diana, like my services. I've asked around on LinkedIn or on Facebook, if you have, because I know Facebook is mostly for parents, but I do say, like, if you have a child that's like looking into applying to school, and I share like my experience, and I also encourage students to go to community college first, and just like money saving tips and stuff like that. So that is my superpower. And then a phrase that keeps me going through difficult times is that even bad chapters have an ending. And I think that sort of reminds me that, you could be going through a difficult season, but that season doesn't last forever. And so that keeps me going, especially, this year. So.
Beautiful.
Kind of echoing on what Metzli said about giving back to your community. I feel that's like my greatest superpower, taking my experiences and just giving all that knowledge back to my whether it's my document community or transfer community. What I really do miss, and what I hate that this pandemic took away from me, was my job. I still do work for CCCP, but what I did was I would visit Los Angeles Mission College, and I was just straight up sit in the transfer center and answer all the questions for students. I remember one time I met a student who was like confused, like on DACA, Dream Act, California Dream Act, he thought that they were like all in one, and it's just giving that knowledge and empowering them. Because for me, in my personal experience, I didn't see college as a possibility for me. I didn't even know what UCLA was when I was in high school. So just giving that feeling of empowerment, of saying, we are here, we can do this, you are more than just your status, is my greatest strength for me. And a quote that I like to, live by is one that Jean from the 580 Cafe tells me. She always tells us that we are enough. And one thing she tells me a lot is take goodness in the love that you are, have been, and will be. So I really love that. It touches me. I wrote it on my whiteboard and it's my calendar, my journal, everywhere. So yeah, it's a little bit.
Beautiful. Thank you, Yasmin.
I think that my superpower would probably be being resilient. I think that life has really tried to challenge me, especially now. And I feel like even though sometimes it took a while to get used to the challenge and overcome it, in the end, I feel like I came out on top. And honestly, like being able to share that with other people who are going through similar experiences or sometimes even worse is really nice, just because I can see that they have hope for their situation. So yeah, I think being resilient, but also listening and, obviously not trying to make it like a competition of like who has it the worst, can be really, really helpful to, really guide others through their difficult situations or support them through them. As for a quote, I'm not really big on quotes, but whenever I'm crying about how frustrating life is, my mom is like, no te preocupes, eres bien chingona. So basically, you're really badass and you got this. And honestly, same to everyone. You are very chingona, chingonex, whatever, gendered Spanish is a thing, but sorry. But yeah, you got this, the situation might be bad, but you're better and you can defeat it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you are all so powerful. Thank you so much. What a beautiful, beautiful share. I'm so inspired in my own body and being, and I hope that for our listeners out there that you also will take this powerful wisdom from our Undocu leaders who have walked the path. They have walked the path. They're on the other side of a part of that journey. And just know if you're afraid of coming out around your status, that you do it in your own time, and that there is support here for you, and that there are, people who are your allies and your advocates. So please do reach out. Please find support and solace, and know that you are not alone in this process. So I thank you all so much. Does anyone have any last words that they want to share?
Just a real quick note, Diana, when you're mentioning chingona, that's actually on my shirt. Espacio in Boyle Heights has a little fist that honestly is so inspirational that I love that. I love it.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you for our viewers. We hope that this series is really beneficial for you to support you in the journey ahead. Thank you.